Good evening, UK Crime Book Club. I get Leigh Russell all to myself for a whole hour. Haha, Kaz. I'm being very childish, I apologise. So, congratulations. Today is publication day for Deep Cover.
It is indeed the 16th in my Geraldine Steele series. Yep.
That is exciting stuff. What kind of day have you had?
Just a normal day, really. Looking at my Amazon rankings rather more than usual, and being quite worried at the beginning of the day because nothing seemed to be happening, and then suddenly we shot up and went from about 6,000 to 700, so that was nice. But other than that, well, I mean, I've been doing quite a lot of writing. I'm writing something else at the moment, and have to get on with the 18th Geraldine Steele soon. And what else have I done today? I got ready to do the washing and then didn't get around to doing it. I've done the dishwasher. I sat in the garden with Michael, which is always my husband, which is always nice because it was a nice day today. And we do the Times crossword, the easy one, I hasten to add. And we like to do that every day. So we sat in the garden, did that, and had some lunch in the garden. And other than that, chatted to my daughter. Just a normal day, really. Phoned my dad, who was 96 last week. And
Birthday for last week to your dad.
Just quite a nice, normal sort of a day. Nothing wildly exciting, but I've got to an age now when nothing wildly exciting happening is actually quite nice, really. So,
It's that thing, isn't it, of your
people are joining. Hello. There's my
childhood punishments being adult goals.
Say again?
Childhood punishments become adult goals.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Quite nice. Yeah. So I was just trying to have a look to see who has said hello. I think it's probably Kaz. Could be Lucy, I'm not sure. But hopefully it will come up on my phone and I'll be able to actually see the comments. So we'll see. Oh, here we go. No, still not there.
Yeah.
But Marion Todd says hi to us both. Hi, Marion. I know Marion's been excited today to come and watch, which is lovely. Hi, beautiful ladies, whoever that is, welcome. Can't see names, but hopefully it will upload on my phone soon. So Marion says, Deep Cover is such a great read. How do you keep the series fresh after so many books? Going right for the jugular, right in there with the hard question.
Do you want me to answer that? Yeah. I mean, this is one of the many challenges, really, of writing a series. So what I've done with Deep Cover, I've tried to do something slightly different, and Geraldine and Ian both have separate investigations to make it a little bit different. But really, I think for me, what differentiates each of my books, one from another, is the character of my killer. Because, I mean, it's maybe not too much of a spoiler to say that the killer does get caught in the end. But Geraldine goes on from book to book and her stories kind of slowly unfolds. But the killer is different in every book. And so that is the new and hopefully the fresh take on the genre in every book. Because, I mean, there are just so many reasons why one person might kill another person, because people are so different, aren't they? And also, in my books, I do try, in most of my books, not all of them, I do try to look at social issues. And I think this is one of the reasons why crime fiction is so interesting, because it does hold up, you know, as Hamlet said, a bit of a mirror up to nature, up to society. And in crime fiction, we're examining not only how people behave and how we might behave as individuals in particular situations, but also how we, as a society and as people living in a society, deal with things like, one of my books looks at gun crime, for example. And I mean, I don't like guns. I don't like anything about guns. But at that point, Geraldine was working in North London, and I thought, I can't really have a crime series set in London, North London, and never mention guns. But of course, most people who own guns are not evil master criminals. They're dysfunctional people, they're kids, and it's a huge issue. In another of my books, one of the York ones for Geraldine, I look at the issue of rough sleepers, or what's often called homelessness. And so I think this is something that makes crime fiction interesting, and I try very often to pick on a different issue domestic abuse, perhaps. Either way, it could be a man stereotypically abusing a woman, but sometimes women abuse men as well. There are lots of issues we can look at. And again, that's slightly different in each of my books. So I try to include different content in each of my books. Geraldine's story does evolve through the books, but I'm very conscious when I'm writing that I'm actually writing for two readers. I'm writing for fans of the series who've been following Geraldine right from the start, but I'm also writing for readers who might pick up any one of my books anywhere in the series, and they want to enjoy it just as much as people who are reading the series. So Geraldine's story is a little bit in the background, and it's the murder investigation that is really the main thrust of the book. And to be honest, that's what really interests me. And what really interests me is the character of my killers and why they do what they do. So I hope I've answered Arian's question. I wandered off the topic a little bit, but I'm really pleased to know that you do think that the books remain fresh from book to book. It is a challenge, and yes, it's something that I do have to think about quite a lot. So thank you for the question.
It was Donna Morfitt who said, "Hello, beautiful ladies." So hi, Donna.
Hi, Donna.
Jonathan Peace, whose debut book comes out in September, actually, has said, actually made it for a video. He tends to watch them after the fact. He tends to come in comments, we can find it again. Congratulations, Leigh, for publication day. My TBR pile keeps growing. We know the feeling. My TBR pile is insane. What about yours? How are you for reading while you're writing? Do you read crime while you're working?
I'll read anything and everything. I do read crime, yes, because a lot of great books. There are a lot of great crime books. I've just been reading M.W. Craven, Puppet Show, so I was really pleased when he gave me a blurb quote for my book, because that's awesome. But I'll read all sorts of things, and it depends very much on my mood. And sometimes I'm just so busy writing that I sadly don't have time to read. But that was one thing during lockdown. I did have more time to read, and that was wonderful. And I read all sorts of things. I've read avidly since childhood. I studied literature for 4 years at university, so I was reading all the time. And then I went from there to teaching English. So all my life has been around books and stories. I think we need fiction. We need fiction as a kind of break from reality sometimes, from the horrors and the anxieties, and sometimes just the sheer tedium of life. Fiction gives us a holiday from reality, doesn't it? Yeah, I'll read anything and everything, but I'm not reading anything right at the moment, because I've got the 18th Geraldine still to write, and I've also started writing something else which I want to get finished so I can get back to Geraldine.
So have you already written number 17?
Say that again?
Have you already written number 17?
Number 17 is written and edited and is coming out in January. Yeah. And number 18. Yeah, number 18 is due in to my editor in December, so I need to get my skates on. I'm halfway through it, so I will be done. I've never missed a deadline. It's a matter of sort of pride with me, really, that I never miss a deadline. And I'm usually about 6 months ahead of deadlines, because, you know, writing a series, I know in advance when things are due in, and once one book's finished, I know that I'm going to be writing another one, because I'm contracted. Well, at the moment, I'm contracted to write 20 Geraldine Steeles. What happens after that, I don't know. I'll just have to see whether I feel that I'm able to carry on, whether my publisher wants me to carry on. I think he will. Yeah, we'll see after that. But yes, number 16 came out today. Here it is, deep cover. Dun, dun. Mm-hmm. Number 17 is written, edited, everything's done and dusted, got a cover. It's actually up on Amazon. You can pre-order it, and it's had a lot of pre-orders, amazingly, because it's not out till January. Yep, I've got to write number 18.
So. I can't imagine that your publisher is not going to want more. I was reading that you have sold almost 2 million.
In the
2 million copies in the Geraldine Steele series.
Mm.
Did you ever imagine getting to that point?
No, I mean, when I wrote,
gave you some hope for what's to come.
Oh, when I wrote the first in the series, I mean, I didn't think anybody else would ever read it, let alone publish it. I certainly had no idea that this might be the first in a long-running series. It just kind of evolved from there, really. So yeah, we just kept going, and as long as the ideas keep coming, I'll keep writing the books, and we'll keep publishing them. But I think that there probably comes a point in any series where you just sort of feel enough's enough. And actually, I mean, I have been partly, during lockdown, I have more time, but I have been writing other things as well, because it's nice to have the challenge of writing different things. And I just felt I didn't want to be a one-trick pony. So I've written a couple of standalone psychological thrillers, which did pretty well. I've written a trilogy for a sort of investigative reporter, which has also done quite well. And yes, I wrote my dystopian novel, which really arose out of lockdown. And I've got a historical novel coming out in October. But these are all slightly peripheral, really. I mean, my main focus really is Geraldine Steele. I'm writing a cozy crime novel at the moment, just because I've never done that before. Whether or not that will get anywhere, I don't know. And I have also written a humorous novel, which will never be published. It's really pretty silly, but it was great fun to write. And I don't think anyone would publish it, but it's fun to try different things.
My doorbell's going, and I
wondered what that was. What's my husband doing down there?
I apologise. I shall not be going to answer the door.
You need to get it. I mean,
This is why I wear the earbuds normally. Leslie Lloyd and Laura Hamilton say hello to us. Hello, ladies. Oh, so Laura's asked, notice this is part of a series. Can it be read as a standalone?
Yes, it absolutely can. And when I started writing my very first book, Cut Short, I didn't think it would ever be published. I just wrote it sort of for fun. I was writing just for me. But now I write for two writers. As I mentioned earlier, I write for people who are fans of the series, growing legions of them. But yes, a lot of people, I mean, there are a lot of people in the world who have not yet read Geraldine Steele. Sad though that is to admit here now. But so yeah, anybody might pick up any book in my series anywhere, and they want to enjoy it, don't they? So yes, I do work quite hard to make the books work as standalones as well as series books. And it's a bit tricky, but with thought and care, it can be done. It's just another challenge of writing a series. But I think it's disappointing, isn't it? If you pick up a book and then as you're reading it, you discover that, oh, okay, this is really part of a series, and because I haven't read the early ones, I don't really know what's going on. That's not what you want when you're reading a book, is it?
No.
But at the same time, people are reading the series, they want to find out what's happening next to Geraldine, and so it's a balancing act really between the two. As I say, I write for two readers really.
So somebody has asked, any chance, Leigh, of getting Geraldine onto TV? Oh, it's Andrew. Also, how long does it take from the first draft through to your proofreader and publication? So it was Andrew who messaged me before we went live to make sure that he didn't miss the interview.
Okay, so the TV question, yeah, I mean, there are people sniffing around again. We very nearly did that a few years ago. A very large TV production company optioned the Geraldine Steele series, and they did a lot of work on it. They gave it what they call a treatment. They had a script writer, everything. Everything was in place. The project didn't come to fruition because the funding wasn't there, and I think that's where a lot of these projects fail. The competition is so fierce, and of course, a lot of good writers are now writing for television. It's not necessarily, from books. You've got Netflix. So yeah, nothing at the moment. Although there is interest at the moment again. So who knows? I mean, I think the more books there are, the better the chance might be. But I don't know. Not at the moment. But let's keep our fingers crossed. And the other part of the question was the overriding story arc right from the beginning. Yeah, okay. In terms of the series, there was
that's a separate question. There was also, how long does it take from the first draft through to the proofreading?
Yeah, okay. It takes me, well, it depends on the book. I mean, it takes me 6 months to write a Geraldine Steele, and it then goes off to the structural editor, and that comes back to me, and I work on it some more, and then it goes off to the content editor, and comes back, and then goes to the proofreader. It's a long process if your publisher has a really thorough, professional, rigorous editing process. So it's usually, well, I'm just trying to think. When I delivered the one coming out in January, I just can't remember. But I would say it's probably getting on for a year from writing the book to it actually hitting the shelves. That's for my Geraldine Steele, which are written from multiple points of view. As you know, if you've read any of them, you'll know the stories are written mainly from my detective's point of view, but you do also see the killer's point of view. You also might have chapters from a victim's point of view or a witness's point of view. And all of these threads have to be pulled together. And I can't, for example, have my killer going out for dinner at the time when actually the victim is being murdered. So everything has to sort of tie in and tally. Mm. So that can be quite complicated, particularly if somebody is disorganized as me. So
I can't imagine you being disorganized.
And then there's research and so on. So Geraldine Steele take me 6 months just to write. But other books, I mean, my fastest, one of my psychological thrillers I wrote in, I think it was 3 weeks, because it was written in the first person. It's just one point of view. The reader only knows what the narrator knows. And so in a way that's kind of a lot easier because I can leave out all sorts of stuff because, well, the narrator didn't know it, you know. So it varies really, but I think, you know, anything from 3 weeks to, I mean, my historical novel took me about 3 years to write because I did so much research and I did a lot of work on that. And I actually wrote a trilogy because I was so interested in the history, but it did become a bit of an information dump because so much of what I read was so fascinating. And I had to cut it down to one novel to just follow one storyline. So I would say it varies. And I don't think there's necessarily any correlation between the time in which it takes you to write a book and how successful it is or how good a book it is, because each book is different, really. So I don't know if that answers the question.
I think it does. The question that you touched on was from Jonathan Peace. With such a long series, did you have an idea for an overriding story arc right from the beginning, or does it develop as you write the next book?
Yeah, it develops all the time. I'm still not quite sure what's going to happen in the next book. Basically, I mentioned earlier, when I started writing my first Geraldine Steele, I just wrote a story. I didn't think anybody else would ever read it. And I was just extremely lucky to be picked up by the most amazing publisher in the world, and who offered me a 3-book deal, and we've just gone on from there with multiple book deals. But they're the only publisher I will do a multiple book deal with now. Other than that, I always do single book deals. Yeah, I just wrote a story. And in fact, what happened was that my editor, when I got this deal, and the first manuscript went off to an editor, and it was pretty rough around the edges. And the editor said to me, she said, you tell your reader a lot about the killer. I was absolutely obsessed with this character, so I'm just going to call him.
I think I'll join you.
And she said, you have to make your detective more interesting because she is the character that is going to continue. You know, the killer gets caught in the end, the detective carries on to the next book. And she said, your detective is the character that readers are going to follow through the series. You have to make her more interesting. So then I started to develop her story, and it was purely by chance that she was working with a rather dishy, dashing young sergeant, Ian Peterson, in the first 3 books, and then in the 4th book, just to, you know, in an attempt, as we were saying earlier, to try and keep the series fresh, I moved Geraldine to London from the home counties. So she left her sergeant behind her, but he still made cameo appearances in her books. And he'd become very popular in his own right. So I wrote a trilogy for him, and Geraldine makes a cameo appearance in each of his books, and it got really quite complicated. And then eventually, Geraldine, partway through the series, she has to leave London for reasons which I won't go into here because you need to read the book.
Yeah.
And so she relocates to York, where Ian Peterson had moved to. And so they're now working together again. Now, if I had planned this out in advance, they're going to start off together, then they're going to be separated, but I'll keep them in touch, and then they're going to come back together. I never would have thought of that, and I'm sure I wouldn't have been able to make it happen because it's quite complex. But it just sort of worked out like that. It's been absolutely perfect. So the story arc, in a way, has kind of written itself. And Geraldine's own story has developed. And no, I know that as a writer, you are supposed to plan these things out in advance. You're supposed to have your story arc. But I just sit down for each book and think, what on earth is going to happen to Geraldine now? What could happen to her? This is where she's at in her life. What's going to be next for her? And it just, I make it up as I go along, basically. And even if I try to plan it, the plan never really seems to work. So yeah, I just make it up as I go along. I find that much more fun than knowing in advance what's going to happen. So yeah, the story arc kind of has created itself. And I mean, it sounds a bit hit and miss, but it is. And I've been lucky, really, that it just seems to have worked so far. And maybe one day it won't. But to me, that's part of the thrill of it in a way, because as I'm writing each book, there is that real terror that, what am I doing here? How am I going to make this work? I've actually got halfway through the 18th book that I'm writing, and I'm thinking, what on earth am I going to do with this now? But that makes it, in a way, for me, it's more kind of organic and exciting as I'm writing it. And I might have an idea and think, oh, I know what I can do, and then off I go again. So the answer to your question about did I plan anything in advance? No, I just didn't. And I've been like that really with my life. I've just been so lucky that things have come along, and so much of what happens to us in life is luck, isn't it? Who you happen to meet. I mean, I've been married for a long time. Just luck, that I happened to meet a really wonderful guy who wanted to be with me. So here I am. It's worked really well. But you can't always control that, can you? So I think you just have to some extent, go with the flow and then make what you can of what happens. So I don't know if that answers your question at all, but I don't really know.
It probably does. I'm actually interviewing Jonathan next month, so I'm sure he's watching to pick up some tips and make sure I'll be nice to him.
Don't talk, I mean, don't just ramble on and on and forget what the question was.
No, absolutely do. Do talk and talk and talk. That is the whole point. Nobody wants to listen to me.
Oh,
Cass wants to know, who are your favourite authors?
Yeah, I hate this question because
I know.
I just can't say it. I mean, there are so many. It depends on my mood. I might be in the mood for Jane Austen. I might be in the mood for something darker, like Neville Shute with his On the Beach. I might be in the mood for something sad and poignant, like Edith Wharton or Kazuo Ishiguro. I might be in the mood for a page turner, like David Baldacci, or it really just depends. I mean, a few favourites I could pick out. Dickens, I always enjoy. Jane Austen, I mentioned, who died when she was in her early 30s, quite remarkable. So yeah, I can't answer that question, and I wouldn't mention current authors because there are so many who are writing so brilliantly, and I don't want to pick out anybody in particular. So yeah, we're just spoilt for choice, aren't we? Really.
I try and mix the answer up every time I'm asked it.
Yeah.
Because it's impossible.
It's like when people say, who's your favourite child? Or you're in a room full of people that you're friends with and they say, who's your best friend? Well, you're not going to say, are you? No. If you ask me what's my favourite tipple or my favourite colour, yeah, that's easy, but not my favourite author. And it would, if I did have a favourite, it would change from day to day anyway, depending on my mood and what I'm reading at the time. There are authors that I reread again and again, and that's wonderful. And it's also wonderful to discover new authors. And yeah. So I actually, when we went into the first lockdown, and it was really quite miserable, wasn't it? And I went back and reread one of my favourite books from when I was a child, which was C.S. Lewis, one of the Narnia books, The Voyage of the Dawn Treader. And I really enjoyed that. But it's quite nice to revisit. Some books you revisit from your childhood and you think, oh, this is so childish. I must have been really young when I enjoyed it. But some seem to still have that magic, don't they?
Absolutely. For me, it's Heidi.
Oh, yeah. I loved Heidi when I was a kid.
Love that.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful story. But yeah, some books just always have that magic, don't they? And that's what fiction is all about, isn't it? It's the magic that transports us into other worlds. And then when we come back, we can somehow face this world, feeling a bit refreshed, can't we? That's how it feels for me anyway.
I like that answer. Cass says, thanks for donating to the charity auction, Leigh. Today should see us cross the £3,000 mark.
Fantastic. Yeah, there's lots of wonderful auctions like that going on, and it's always lovely to be part of them. Yeah, I always I support something, a children's cancer charity. It was called Click Sergeant. They've changed their name, but it's the children's cancer charity. And every year they auction a character name in one of my books. And I always think, I hope it's a name that I can work with, because some names are quite amusing or not quite what you might choose to.
Not quite the fit that you'd hoped for.
Yeah, for a crime novel. But yeah, but still, it's all in a good cause. So yeah.
I did actually do some bucket shaking for Click Sergeant years ago when the MEN in Manchester was called the MEN. I think it might be the O2 now. I don't know. I've not been out much for the last couple of years, Manchester. Don't be mad that I can't remember the names of places. And people dug deep, because I remember me and my friend Fiona, who invited me to help, were aching like mad the following day. Very, very worthy cause. So I didn't know they changed the name. I'll have a look at that.
I mean, I've had people, begging me to be in one of my books. I don't mind being a killer or a victim, or I just want my name in a book. But
how would you feel about having your name in a book as a character? Would that interest you at all?
I don't know if it would interest me. I mean, it might be fun. I might have a look to see what they've done. But it's just a name, isn't it? Really, it's not actually my name. It's a pseudonym.
Yours is a pseudonym, yeah.
When I started writing, well, first of all, it was about 12 years ago, and so it sounds very old-fashioned now. But one of my somebody who was working at my publisher at the time felt it might be a good idea to have an androgynous name. And of course, this is why a lot of authors have initials, don't they? They say their name, so you don't know if it's a man or a woman. I mean, it doesn't matter, does it?
No.
But the main reason I chose to write under a pseudonym was because I was still working as a school teacher at the time, and I didn't want all these teenage kids to know that I was a writer, because I thought they might, laugh at me, and if the book really bombed, it would be embarrassing. Well, actually, the book was very successful, and they all found out anyway. But that was the reason for my choice. I wanted to keep it very quiet at the time, in case it just all was a big embarrassment, because I didn't know what it was like to be an author or what was going to happen. I quite like the idea of writing under a different name. I mean, I'm so used to being called Leigh now that I just think of it as my name, and my husband often calls me Leigh. It has caused some confusion, because Leigh is actually, in real life, Leigh is my surname. And so my husband's used to being called Michael Russell. And to begin with, it confused us. We were, who's Michael Russell? Then we realized, of course, they know he's my husband. I'm Leigh Russell, so he's Michael Russell. But anyway, I did think of publishing other books under a different name, but then I thought, oh no, that's just going to be too complicated. So
yeah.
But lots of people change their names, and lots of authors write under different names. Ellie Griffiths is also Domenica Rosa, and Ruth Rendell was Barbara Vine, and lots of authors do that. Well, J.K. Rowling and Robert Galbraith. So, but I've decided just to stick with Leigh Russell. I like it. It's a good name.
I like it. It's got a really nice ring to it.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like a pseudonym. Not that most names do. Do you know what I mean? It sounds like it fits.
Yeah, Russell is not that kind of different or exciting, is it? So it sounds fairly realistic, I suppose. Yeah.
I wasn't thinking it wasn't exciting, just that it works. It's a nice name that you've chosen.
It is actually my married surname and my maiden name. So so it is sort of my name.
But it works. That's the main thing, isn't it? Wherever it came from, it's a good name to have.
Well, I'm stuck with it now, like Geraldine Steele. I mean, I'm not sure that's the. I know. I wish I'd chosen a different name, but at the time I had to think of a name. I didn't think anybody was ever going to read this book, so I just picked a name. And
I think the name really works for her.
Well, Steele is a little bit, for a detective. Is it a little bit kind of?
I don't think it's too on the nose. I think again, you hit it just right.
Anyway, I'm stuck with it, so that's it. Names are very difficult, aren't they? And Ian Peterson, everybody calls him Ian Patterson. You're okay. Bye. Certainly, when he first came on the scene, nobody called him Ian Peterson because James Patterson. Everybody was calling Ian Patterson, and some people still do. And my publisher is called Ian as well. So why did I call him? I don't know. It was just I had to think. And I didn't really think, oh well, those people are going to be reading this book. The series is going to go on for years and years and years. I need to think of something that I'm going to be happy with in 10 years' time. So it's only a name anyway. As Juliet said, what's in a name? Or was it Romeo? Must have been Juliet. What's in a name?
Yeah. See, now I'm trying to, I don't know, off the top of my head. This is the thing about being put on the spot.
Maybe
things don't come to you.
You know the line, what's in a name goes by any other name would smell as sweet, so would my Romeo. Yeah, so it's Juliet.
Yeah.
So what's in a name?
Kaz wants to know how your dystopian novel is coming along.
Yeah, it's sold very well to begin with, and now it's sort of fizzling a little bit, and there's a whole story there about what's happening with that publisher. So it was just an experiment, really, because I made a decision very early on not to mention the pandemic in Geraldine Steele, because for me, I think, as I mentioned, for me, fiction is an escape from reality. And I didn't want to think about COVID while I was writing Geraldine Steele. There are some areas that I don't want to go to. I mean, I hope it's not a spoiler to say I would never kill a child in one of my books, because I have children. That's just not somewhere I want to go in my head. And while I was writing Geraldine Steele, I didn't want to be thinking about what was going on in the real world. I wanted to escape from it into Geraldine's world. So Geraldine Steele lives in a kind of sort of parallel universe where COVID just never happens. And I thought, the pandemic is not going to influence my writing at all. But then I wrote this dystopian novel about a virus that attacks not only human life, but all life on Earth. And it was just following an idea, really, and it did get published, but that's not my main kind of focus, really, at the moment. It was. I think it arose out of my feelings about the pandemic. So you never really know as a writer what's going to kind of spark your interest or set you off writing something. And sometimes you have a story in your head and you just have to write it. In the same way that when we're reading some books, you just have to keep reading. You put them down, can you? It just gets in your head, really.
It does happen sometimes. I'm quite strict about not reading ahead for the author interviews, just keeping everything in order, because I know that a couple of times I've glanced at a book and that's it. I mean, there is no taking myself away from it, and I know I'm going to have to find another 8 to 10 hours to read another book ahead of it. I don't look most of the time.
Yeah, sometimes it can be quite painful, can't it, if you have to stop reading a book?
Yeah.
I don't find that quite so much with writing, maybe because I'm sort of a bit more in control of it and I know what's going to happen. But when I'm reading, sometimes it is painful to have to stop, isn't it? You just need to carry on. And I need to know what's going to happen. It really irritates, actually, my one of my daughters who was living with us at the time, because if I'm watching something on television, shameful admission here, I don't do this when I'm reading. I'd never read the last page, but if I'm watching something on television, like a series or a film, I will often just kind of Google what happens in the end, because I just need to know.
No, that would absolutely drive me insane. I hate spoilers. I don't even like people talking if we're watching something. I drive my family insane. I mean, for how much I talk, no.
we hate spoilers, but sometimes it really doesn't matter. I mean, like, let's say take Freddie Forsyth's Day of the Jackal, where he writes the story of the guy who attempted to assassinate de Gaulle, and it was based on a true incident. We all know that he didn't succeed. He didn't kill de Gaulle, but the book is so tense. How does that happen? And if you watch a really good production of Romeo and Juliet, you know what's going to happen in the end. You know they're both going to die. But it's so sad at the end, isn't it? Or West Side Story, it just makes me cry, even though I've seen it a few times and I know what's going to happen in the end. So sometimes it doesn't really matter, does it, if we know what's going to happen in the end? But yeah,
it makes me really grouchy.
When I'm writing, I usually know the very end of the book, even though I don't know how I'm going to get there. I know the beginning and I know the end. And so I find that bearable.
It made me laugh. I think this must be from Kaz, who's at the door of Samantha Brown there. They don't have to deal with this at literary festivals. Yeah, you're right, they don't. I think the neighbour had a parcel. 2 of my children were stood waving at me, mouthing, "Shall we open the door?" And I just kind of shook my head and ignored them. I did feed them before we went live, though, so they're fine.
I wouldn't have minded if you'd gone off and answered the door. I didn't know talking.
I wouldn't have brought it back up if Kaz wasn't teasing me.
It might have been something to tell you that you'd won the lottery or something. Now they've gone on to the next person.
Yeah, if the door goes again, I'm going to answer it. David Gilchrist says, "Looking good, Lee Russell."
Say again. I'm looking at this one.
David says, "Looking good, Lee Russell." Can you see that one?
No. Who's the name? Oh,
it was David Gilchrist.
I can't see his name.
You just see it as Facebook user.
Yeah, they all say Facebook user. So what has he said?
Looking good, Lee Russell.
I think he meant you. Oh yeah, I can see it. I think he
meant Lee Russell.
Somebody said I love cozy crime. I'm writing a cozy crime at the moment.
So come on, tell us about that. That was from Caroline.
What, the cozy crime? No, I haven't finished it yet, and it will probably never get published. So I'm going to keep that quiet. It might be a load of rubbish. I just don't know. It's just fun. It's, oh yeah, somebody's asked about COVID, but yeah, we've answered that, haven't we?
Leslie Lloyd has asked, what is the difference between a structural editor and a content editor?
Yeah, structural and content editor, same name, 2 names for the same things, right? So you have, first of all, the structural or content edit, and that's the editor who looks at the overall shape of your book, says things like, as I mentioned earlier, you need to make your detective more interesting and tell us less about the killer, you know, about the balance of the book and whether the whole thing works out. I could give you lots of examples of structural editing comments I've had. Then you have the line editing, which is also called copy editing.
And gives you sore eyes.
And that goes through line by line and looks at, have you repeated words and so on. And we all do it. Churchill instructed his editors to look out for the word vast, because he knew it was a favourite word of his and he overused it, and they had to look out for it and change it. And then finally is the proofreading. You know, they just pick up typos and sometimes pick up on things the content editor has missed. So, and you know what? Okay, so I was an English teacher. I'm very pedantic, and I'm, for some reason, and this is not something I'm particularly proud of because it's a pretty useless skill to have, really, but I'm very good at spelling. I don't know why. I can spell words I don't even know, that I've never come across before. I just seemed... Anyway, so that's me. And then there's the eagle-eyed editor. Then there's the content editor. Then there's a team of proofreaders. And mistakes still slip through sometimes. It's just, you know, you can't help it, really. I mean, when you're reading books, you will occasionally come across typos, and you just have to try and be, you know, forgiving, really. Some books are not that well edited. I remember reading... a particular book that was a huge blockbuster. I better not mention it, but
I was just going to say, please don't say the name or the author.
No, but a very popular book at the time. This was a while ago, but in fact, this was about 15 years ago, maybe 10 years ago. Anyway, and it really irritated me because I am quite pedantic, and it was full of typos. But sometimes, if a book is that badly edited, it just puts me off so much, I'll stop reading it. But this particular book was so brilliant, and it was such a page turner, I had to keep reading. And so it was really irritating me, but I couldn't stop reading it. And that was really quite annoying. In some ways, I was pleased when I got to the end, but it was that good that I couldn't stop reading it, even though it was so inaccurate. But, so that was a bit of a pity. But, just an editing thing, really. And I think also, because I was an English teacher for about 20 years, I'm a little bit geared up to noticing these things. But anyway.
I was going to ask you about your writing course, because you've had some great success with it already.
Oh, do you know what? I think it was towards the end of lockdown, and I just thought, I'll just, do a little writing course online. It might be a fun thing to do. And I thought I'd get about 6 people signing up, and off we go. It'd be nice. I've had about 75 people so far signing up. So I've finished the first course. I'm finishing the second one tomorrow. Then I've got one starting in September, one starting in October. And I've just just said online that I'm going to do one in January. And it's already nearly full. I have about 15 people on the course, so 15 to 17. So I'm just amazed how popular they've been. I don't charge very much because I want to make them accessible to everybody. And I'm not a professional Zoom host, I've got a Zoom Pro, but I'm not professional at doing it. It's just me talking about what I've learned about writing over the years. And I've been through the editing process 25 times now, and I've learned so much on the job. So I just talk about it's just a 6-week course, but it's very cheap. It's the one in January is £35 for the 6 weeks. So I'm just amazed how popular they've been, and the people who have been on the courses so far have all been absolutely lovely, wonderful people. And what's been particularly nice, I think, is that so far the 2 groups I've had so far, they've set up their own mutually supportive Facebook groups. Because I said to them, this course is just 6 weeks and then that's it. But they can carry on supporting each other as a little group of beta readers, and have a mutually supportive group, private group on Facebook for as long as they want. And I think that's a really, really lovely thing to come out of it, really, that, I just started off, really. It's like dropping a ripple in a pond, and then they take it from there if they want to. So far, both the groups have, and I think that's lovely. I like the idea that they'll just carry on, helping each other and supporting each other. And I've told them that when they write their bestsellers, I want to be acknowledged in their acknowledgements. I want to be mentioned. Yeah.
So what kind of things do you cover in the course?
We look at,
without giving us your course content, obviously.
Yeah, it's character establishment, character development, plot structure. What else do we talk about? Setting, description. All the elements really that make up a novel. And what I'm really talking about is something that I've learnt on the job, which is how to write for readers. Because writing for yourself is one thing, and we all do that sometimes, but to write for readers is a different animal. And that's really, I think, the key to successful writing. If you can engage your readers and keep them following your story. So I'm just talking about how I do that and how other people do that, and ways of doing that, techniques of doing that. So, and so far I've had very successfully published authors coming along. I've had complete novices coming along. It really doesn't matter. Writing is a great leveler, and it doesn't matter. You might have written 50 books or no books, both writers. So we don't talk about our writing experience. Well, I do. I talk a lot, as you know. But we just talk about what we're writing. And it's great. I'm really enjoying it. I think because I worked as a teacher for a long time, that possibly has helped. I've had a lot of experience writing. I chair the Crown Writers Association Debut Dagger Award, so I'm used to judging work, looking at work, with a critical eye. I write critiques for the CWA, so I've just had so much experience. It kind of makes sense to try and share some of it, put some of it out there, put some of it back. So that's what I'm doing.
I love that. Somebody, it's from Andre. The characters Geraldine and Ian may get together. It can be done, especially because they get on well. I will watch this space. Well, there has been some. I'm not going to say anything. I'm going to let you say things.
No, I mean, I have to say that this came from readers, really. Readers have been desperate for Geraldine and Ian to get together. And, well, Ian was married when they first met with a very whingy wife. I think I actually overdid it a little bit because I wanted to get his wife out of the way so that we could have this kind of will they, won't they friendship between Geraldine and Ian. So I wanted to get his wife out of the way without any kind of blame attaching to him. So I had to make her quite sort of whiny and annoying. And I was getting messages from readers saying, can you just get rid of that wretched woman? I love the book, but that woman annoys me so much. So I think I went a bit overboard making her annoying. But anyway, there's been all sorts going on. But yeah, I mean, will Geraldine and Ian end up together? Possibly. But then again, maybe not. Maybe he's going to die. I mean, I really don't know. I genuinely don't know. So I'll have to write the books to find out, and you will have to read them to find out.
That's fair enough. Andrew also says, my ambition is to look around the publishers. Before COVID, have you visited your publisher? And do you have a say with your covers?
Oh, I love my publisher. He takes us out for lunch once in a while. And to begin with, he used to take us out for a pizza. And then gradually, as the book sold better and better, he started taking us out to rather nicer places. And now we get Prosecco. It's great. Yeah, I mean, I visited the publishing house, and we were actually flown over to Denmark to see one of my books being printed, which was fun. Yeah, I mean, I've been with my publisher now for that 12 years, and I really respect him. I trust him. I would trust him with my life. He's such a lovely guy and so honest and straight, and also very shrewd. He's really, really nice. I mean, I'll just give you an example. There's an American author who was with my publisher for about 20 years, and his books were just sort of, trundling along, a few sales here and there. And then a major film was made out of one of his books with Ryan Gosling and Kerry Mulligan, and suddenly he was a big name, and all the big publishers in the UK were sniffing around and making him offers. He said, Ian stood by me when my books weren't selling. I've been with him for 20 years. I'm going to stick with him. And that's how I feel. I like to work with people that I get on with, people that I trust. And I can tell you that publishing is a brutal business. It really is. It's a jungle out there. The competition, and it's very cutthroat. And I think I was just extremely fortunate to have landed on my feet with this really, really good, decent publisher. So yes, I've met him. I would count him as a friend. In the 12 years we've worked together, we've only ever had one little tiff, and that was when over a TV option, and I was being probably a bit overexcited. But yeah, he's a good guy, and I have definitely met him, and anytime he wants to meet up, I'm there, because he's a lovely guy and great company. Yeah, he is like a friend. He goes to cricket with my husband. Do I have a say about my covers? Yes, I am consulted about my covers, but my feeling is that I know nothing about book covers. I know nothing about current trends and what might sell, what might look good on Amazon, whatever. So I basically leave it to my publisher and publicist and the cover designer. But I do get consulted, yes. And what happens is I will be sent half a dozen or so covers and asked to comment. And if I really hated one, they wouldn't go with it, obviously. But generally, it's a discussion. And I might say, well, I like this one, but I want, can we have a different color font? And then the production manager might say, well, yeah, but we had that color font 2 books ago. And it's very collaborative, really. My publisher has the final say, because I trust him, and what do I know, really? I can write a story. That's all I know about, really. So I think they do a good job with my covers. I like them better when my name was in bigger writing, but I think the problem with that was having a series. The books need to be differentiated so people know which one they've read. And they actually have this lovely idea now that they put the number of the book.
I love numbers on a spine,
which is great.
Series.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, there are just so many things to take into account, and who to put on the back of the book. We've got what we've got on here, M.W. Craven,
Leigh Child, M.W. Craven, Martina Cole,
and
the Times.
Yeah, I mean, all sorts of the books have had a lot of nice, very generous comments over the years, really. But I get consulted about the covers. I don't really know much about cover design. And I think there's so many things to take into account, about the font size and where you place things. And it's not really my forte, and I'm not very visual. I can't really. I mean, I do like this cover. I like the figure sort of going into well, where is she going? Can't tell really. And because it's called Deep Cover, and she's sort of underground, coming out into the light. What's going on there? I like covers that are a little bit intriguing. But anyway, that's the cover really.
I don't want to go too far into what happens in Deep Cover, but talk to us a bit about the opening.
I have to have a look because I can't remember it. I've because I'm 2 books on, but I think I know. Oh yeah, I remember. Yeah, the opening. Yeah.
I don't want to give anything away. I mean, I think it's better to let you do it.
Yeah, I try to do something. I mean, with each of my books, I try to do something different with the killer. So in some of them, the killer might be a psychopath who would kill another human being, like I might kill a wasp. In some of them, it might be somebody who's driven to kill. This killer, I mean, he is not a very nice character in many ways. So I don't know that we feel that much sympathy for him. But he didn't set out to kill anybody.
It is quite unfortunate.
Yeah,
the whole situation.
It could happen though, couldn't it? And he chose to put himself in that situation. So in a way, you think, well, it serves him right. But on the other hand, he didn't intend what happened to happen.
I think we're just confusing people at this point.
Yeah, probably. Well, read the book, make up your own mind.
Read the first chapter, you will not put it down. You will not put it down.
Oh.
Leslie Lloyd had said the only book she's read is number 15, which is Evil Impulse.
Yeah.
And felt that it read well as a standalone, which is obviously the idea.
That is my intention, yes. It does become more difficult as I go through the series. So it's nice to know that book 15 works as a standalone because, of course, Geraldine's backstory is kind of rumbling on in the background. And as the books go on, her backstory develops and there's more and more going on in the background. But what I try to do, I mean, I don't want to dwell on the backstory too much because that's boring for people who've read earlier books. They know all that. They want to get on with the story. But then people that haven't read the earlier books need to be put in the picture. But there are ways around it. It gets more difficult as I go along. But I think with all these issues in writing, if you're aware of the issue, then it just becomes a problem to solve. And I'm a great one for, I don't see problems, I see solutions. It irritates my children massively because they'll sort of start telling me that about some problem they've got, some little problem. And I'm straight away saying, well, if you do this or if you do that, and I'm not asking you to tell me what to do. I just want to sort of say, oh, this happened. Yeah, I can't help it if there's some sort of problem. And the same with my husband. I'll always try and, well, I suppose I'm being bossy trying to tell them what to do, but I'll always try and find a solution. And I think when you're writing, perhaps particularly with crime novels, but probably with all novels, part of what you're doing is finding solutions to problems, to things that happen. I mean, a really obvious example would be that, the killer has killed somebody and they need to move the body to somewhere else. How are they going to do it without being seen? I mean, that's always a big question. Because, of course, most murders in the real world are solved almost straight away, because 90-something%, I don't know, of murders are domestics. If a man kills a woman in their front room, they're living together, he kills her in the front room, well, then, you know, he's arrested straight away. When you're writing a crime novel, you have to, someone is killed. Well, in my book, there's usually a murder or somebody, a body on the first page. And then it needs to take the police the whole book before they track down the killer. But you can't make your police seem really stupid. So there's the problem of how can somebody get killed, particularly with all the forensics that are around now, all the forensic science. How can somebody be killed and then it takes, you know, weeks, because my books happen fairly swiftly, you know, then it takes weeks for the police to find out who did it. There has to be all sorts of, you know, problems for the police, or all sorts of hurdles for them to overcome. So that's quite sort of fun to try and work out and think about.
We are almost at the end of our
I can't believe it. It's gone so quickly, but I've really thought.
It's absolutely flown. Do you want to give us a recap? That lovely, it's a really lovely image behind you with all of your books.
This was something, I think this was for my 10th book. My publisher produced this massive banner. It's actually, when it's fully extended, it's half as high again to put all the books on. But I've just adapted it so I can have it in the background when I'm doing Zoom meetings and festivals and things online. And basically, yeah, it's just my name in big letters. I like my name in big letters. And then it has all the book covers for Geraldine Steele. And I just stuck a copy of Deep Cover in front of it as well, because you can't see that on the poster. It only goes up to the first 10 books, I think. But yeah, it's a nice thing to. I mean, we used to take it around to literary festivals, and it is big. I mean, it's so tall that I can't unfold it, you know, unroll it by myself, because it's so much higher than it is there. And so my husband is a bit taller than me, and so he could do it, and so he would come around with me, unroll this thing, and get it put up. But I mean, it's a great thing to have with you if you're in a bookshop or at a literary festival or something. I like to think of myself as a bit like Derren Brown. You know, people might pass it in a bookshop, not really say anything, but they just kind of register the name and then see it later on and think, oh yeah, I know that name. But I don't know that. And the cover, the colour of my name is the colour of the font for the title of the 10th book, which was Class Murder. My publishers were very excited about the 10th book. We had all sorts of stuff going on. The publishers got very busy at the time. And so I did a tour of 10 cities in 10 days, because it was the 10th book. We went up to Glasgow, and it tied in with the I Write literary festivals. That was good. And then we came to the York Literary Festival, which was going on. And we went all over the place, down to Portsmouth. And it was quite exhausting, actually. Then they threw a party. It wasn't a book launch as such. It was a party, and just invited everyone. And it was great fun. So that was that. But yeah, so that's where that banner came from, really. And actually, we had at the party, I had my daughter is she's RADA trained, and so she took on the character of Geraldine Steele. She bought herself a short black wig and was really, really like Geraldine Steele. It was quite sort of scary. And her partner looks a bit like Ian Peterson. So they both had little badges saying they were Geraldine Steele and Ian Peterson. And they walked around the room at this party, sort of challenging people and sort of holding up their badges and saying, have you seen anything suspicious here? And what are you doing here? And this sort of thing. But then they challenged my editor, who's been with Geraldine Steele books right through the series and knows them inside out and knows Geraldine and Ian better than I do. And it was hilarious, because she started answering them and telling them, and they didn't know Geraldine and Ian as well as she did. She was absolutely hysterics. It was great fun. But yeah, that's where the banner comes from.
And at that point, what a way to end. I love ending on a good story. Congratulations on publication day for Deep Cover. Thank you for choosing us for your launch.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me to come along and chat to you. I mean, it's It's great. And it's been, I think I mentioned to you the other day that I remember when UK Crime Book Club reached 1,000 members.
Obviously, I don't, but I'm nodding along.
Like you're too young. But I mean, look at it now. It's just, I don't think it's been going for that long, has it? Do you know how long it's been going? I mean,
I'm going to get shouted at. I think it's about 5 years.
Yeah, something like that. So I mean, it's phenomenal how much it's grown, isn't it? And it's really, really lovely.
Shout at me.
I bet somebody knows. I know.
Somebody probably will know, but I am going to be told off because off the top of my head, I've been in here about 2.5 years and an admin for about 2.
Yeah, I think it is about 5 years. That sounds about right, although I'm not sure. Yeah, so I mean, to grow so much in such a short space of time, I mean, it just shows how popular the genre is and how fantastic this group is as well. I mean, it's really amazing, isn't it? So exciting.
It really is.
Yeah, and I mean, Caroline and David have done a fantastic job, and getting people like you on board and involved is just wonderful, isn't it? It's just fabulous that so much like this is going on. And in some ways, you know, the internet has really opened things up so much in a way, hasn't it?
Massively.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you to all the members and admins for coming and supporting Leigh on publication day. And we can't wait for next time.
Thank you so much. And maybe I'll come back in January if you'll have me and chat about the next book.
Me and Kaz will fight over you again.
Thanks a lot. Bye.